All right, welcome back, everybody, to our Wolverine Studios channel here on our on Twitch. We are very excited to be back with you. It's been a little bit since we've been on our channel here, but we are ready for the 2024 season of games, and we're kicking off with Draft Day Sports College Football 2024. Your first look tonight. I'm joined very happily by Brooks and Asger. You guys say hello to our fans out there.
Hello, everybody.
Hi guys.
So we've been putting in a lot of work this year on the games, as you can see. We've got the main menu here. I'm going to load up a test game I have. One of the big things you're going to see is a lot of new UI changes. So I'm going to go over some of those initially, and if you guys have questions, you can put them in the chat, and Brooks and Asger can jump in either through voice or chat with those, and then we're going to get into some of the big new features, and I will kind of turn it over to those guys at that point to let them explain better what's going on. So as you can see, we've got a lot going on here on our new page. Opening up to the team dashboard, you'll see the layout of things have changed, the look of things has changed, and we've also added some really cool new things that are going to help make everything a little bit more accessible to you and let you kind of move around a little bit better. You'll see on the bottom of the screen, we've implemented a ticker, so you can kind of get an idea of all the scores that are going on in the league and some of the top performances, just at a glance. And the team dashboard page here has been completely redesigned so that you get a lot of information at a glance. You still have your impact players here, a area to let you know what place you're in the division, your top 25 rank. You got your recruiting information and news on the right, so you can see kind of what you have scheduled right now for your outreach. And we're going to go into a lot about recruiting later. Also, who has committed and things like that. In the middle, you've got your team schedule, you've got your news and events, you've got your injury report. So you can have all this data here at a glance on your team dashboard. We've also implemented the links. We've moved links around. On the left side, you still have your league links. On the top part, you have underneath your name there, you have your links for the actions that you typically do as the coach. And then on your team pages up at the top, you'll have the links for dashboard staff, roster stats, etc. up there. One of the biggest new changes is how we switch teams in the game. So in the past, there was a drop down on the left side that you had to scroll through. Now we've got a link here. We're going to click teams, and it's going to pop up and a full menu of the team. So you can just select. You can see all the teams at a glance. You can select, by logo. If you want to break it down, you can click at the top, and you'll be able to change by conference if you know the team in particular that you're looking for. So a lot of different things here and new opportunities to kind of find the information that you're looking for. You click on a team, it will go to their team page. You can always click back no matter what screen you're on. You can click either your team logo on the left or the Your Office button, and that will take you back to your office, and you can move on to your teams from there. So a lot of big changes in that sort of direction with the navigation and things like that. I think you'll really like it once you get used to it. We've had some internal testing going on and really positive feedback about the look of everything. So I'm really excited for you guys to be able to see this and kind of get into it and get used to it. We still have all of the media information, the magazines. We've tried to add some new things to these screens as well. I'll just click through them really quickly so that you can take a look. If the league home screen that you used to see when you logged in is still there. Top 25, league news, league stats, all that kind of stuff still there. You just have to click to it now instead of being defaulted to it. And then, like I said, you can always click your logo or your office link to go back to your team. We've also made some changes. For visual importance on some of the screens. This is the roster screen here. now there is a check mark up here to let you know that your positions are okay. You can click and pull up the position counts. We have these little light bulb icons throughout the game that you can roll over and get help. Brooks and Asker have done a great job trying to explain things in the game itself. A lot of notes to click if you're gonna change your view between the roster and roster management. All these sort of things. I think you'll really enjoy once you get into and start figuring it out. And that's just a very that's a big part cosmetically of what's new in the game, but the biggest stuff is in some of the details, and I want to get Brooks and Asger in talking about that. And I'm going to pull up the recruiting page, and Brooks, why don't you kind of go over some of the high level points of recruiting, because I know a ton of work has gone into this section.
Sure. A bunch of these pieces kind of go together. So what we decided to do this time around is create, like, we've always had a total budget related to coaches, and then whatever you didn't spend in coaches would kind of get assigned to other things within the game. And we decided to lean into that a little bit more. So now there will be a total budget for each team that's assigned based on basically prestige and how well the school is doing and that kind of thing. And then out of that budget, they will have money to spend on coaches. They'll have money to spend on recruiting, and whatever's left over, they'll be able to spend on facilities. So a lot of these screens have a lot more of this information now. You saw the team info screen earlier. You see the staff screen. You see the team homepage has a bunch of these numbers on there so that you can kind of see how you're managing to these budgets. A lot of this, like most of the things we do, is configurable. So you're able to, dial these numbers in and make these numbers make sense for whatever kind of league you want to do or how difficult you want it to be. But that leans into staff hiring, and it makes a big difference in recruiting. So reason we wanted to do that for recruiting is that I liked tying it to dollars. We started doing that in CF23. I wanted to lean into it a little bit more so that you feel like you have a choice of where you're spending your money. And also it makes recruiting a little bit more immersive, maybe, to kind of decide how you're going to tackle which kids you're going to pursue. So now when you go to recruit kids, you have to factor in how far away they are. You have to factor in what kinds of actions that you're going to perform to recruit that particular kid. And we did this, like I said, we've had a lot of these actions already. We just kind of tweaked them a little bit. But you'll notice on this screen under actions, there's no more scouting points and there's no more recruiting points. It's not just about putting 20 points into a kid and then moving on. You actually have to put a little bit of effort into interviewing the kids. You have to put a little effort into deciding which kids you're going to offer official visits to and when you're going to do it, when you're going to do home visits with kids, and that kind of thing. You'll see the interest bars go up and down depending on how you do those actions and how successful those actions are. Each action now will have a different cost. So when you roll over a particular checkbox, it'll tell you how much that kid costs to do that action, and that's tied to their distance from you. It costs a lot more to fly a kid in Hawaii to Alabama to do an official visit. So a lot of these things are distance dependent, and that will, small schools are obviously going to be limited to a lot of local kids versus the bigger schools with bigger budgets will be able to go after pretty much anybody that they want, depending on how you configure it into your settings. So now the way this works is the scouting that happens, it still happens behind the scenes, but now it's completely dependent on your coaching staff. So coaches are more important now. It's not just how many points you put into a particular kid. All of the kids are automatically scouted by your staff, and the accuracy of those reports will be based off of the attributes of your particular coaches. So that makes this screen a little easier. You don't have to just go click on everybody and add 10 points or whatever for scouting. And for recruiting, again, there's no more points. So it's just about picking the actions. We have put limits in there that are configurable. So There's a help bubble at the bottom that we have it set to like 50 contacts, 25 phone calls, 15 visits, 25 official visits per week. So you can't just offer 100 kids an official visit in 1 week, right? That's not very realistic. The coaches obviously couldn't handle 100 kids on campus at once. So we took that kind of thing and put limits in there. Um, Other than that, yeah, you get an official visit per kid. You get up to 6 home visits per kid. And then per week, you have limits on how much recruiting you can do as a staff. And that's kind of how we've refined the screen. So if you're recruiting 25 kids a week, 100 kids overall, you'll be able to easily kind of see how you're progressing as their interest goes up and down. We've also revamped the way interest works for kids. Before, it was just kind of a meter that accrued as the more you recruited a kid, the more his interest went up. And now there's a lot more in there where kids will not reject your recruiting, but it just won't affect them that much. Even if you offered them official visits and home visits and you do everything you can to recruit the kid, some kids just aren't interested in your school, either because there's not a good fit with your coaching staff or because there's not a fit with their personalities. And so you'll be able to see their interest uh, going up or not going up depending on how those actions resolve each week. So you'll see kids who have no interest. They'll get a little bit warmer, but some of them just will never get to the point where they're ready to sign with you because they're either interested in other schools or, like I said, they're just not a good fit for your school. So the interest meter now is, if it gets up to that hot stage, chances are they're going to sign with you if there's not anybody else that, like, they still could be interested in other schools, right? Kids have 2 or 3 schools that they're going to be interested in, and if some of their favorite schools decide to come calling, then yeah, there's going to be some competition there. But you'll see a lot more spread of the interest across the gamut of all of your recruits as they sign.
I think those
Well,
are
just
some really huge changes there. Asker, what do you think on the recruiting side here?
I am so this is mainly Brooks's credit. I don't want to take credit for all of this awesome work. I'm really excited to see how it pans out, and I've been playing around with it, and I really kind of like it. And I know that a lot of people felt that the scouting points and the recruiting points were too gamey in a certain sense. So I think this change will be like an excellent extra little nugget for immersion, that you actually have money and you actually, especially for the smaller schools, right, that can't just throw around with money like Bama or whatever the big ticket schools are, right? Just to address a couple of questions. Yeah, so Brooke is already in there. So Nolan, 1958, asks if other schools that kids are considering will be shown, and they are shown on the player cards. So on the player cards, you should be able to see who's recruiting them somewhere. I'm not sure if we moved it around, but it should be in there somewhere.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it'll
so
be
he has.
under top schools.
Yeah,
We're going back and forth. Obviously, this is first access, so this is our first reveal of this kind of stuff to the community. So if you have ideas or things that you think should be tweaked or updated, or things that we've either forgotten about or we've missed feedback on the forums that we need to change, by all means, jump in the forums and jump on in Discord or Slack or whatever, and send us messages, because we're still looking for some of that feedback. In this case, the top schools, there's a conflict for me as to how much information do we give people. Like, is it just kids who've received offers, or is it kids who have like really high interest in different schools? Is it any school that's recruiting them at all? Right? That there's all kinds of different things we could put on there. Some of these top kids they can get dozens of offers by the time the end of the season rolls around. So I didn't want to spam all of those things. I remember seeing somebody had a good recommendation on putting top schools there, just to kind of imply that that's not all the schools that may be recruiting them. It's just kind of the top ones. So that's where we landed at the moment. But we'll definitely take feedback on that, and we can tweak it as we go.
just to answer Kevin in the chat. Kevin, if you, I almost answered you on the forum, but then I remembered that we had a stream. So if you, when you're playing your game, you can always click sim game rather than sim the whole week. So you can sim the game and then you can watch the game that you want to watch. So all of the rankings and stuff like that won't update until the entire week is simmed.
All right, so I want to pull back to the recruiting side just for a second here. I clicked over to the sim screen so you could see that sim game option. But recruiting is such a huge part of a college game. I'm really excited to see how much went into. I mean, it's almost like you guys took a really good base of recruiting and then really fleshed it out in this version with the the budgets and the spending and stuff like that. I think it's really taking the game to a huge next level, a huge jump in the game with this new recruiting actions and stuff like that. So I'm really happy to see this in the game. I know the work that goes into the recruiting side on the college basketball game. People definitely want the immersion. They want to feel as realistic as possible, and I think that you guys have done a really good job doing that, and especially the details like recruiting based on distance and things like that. It's not just a simple gamey thing. You really got to put some thought and effort into it. And of course, there is the option up here. I'll click to turn the delegate recruiting on. So that does a pretty good job, it seems to me, Brooks, of taking care of like a lot of the recruiting stuff if you don't want to get that deep into it, right?
Yeah, we updated that a little bit so that the recommended recruits that the AI goes for are kids who have like a high default interest in your school already and local. It takes your budget into account so that it's not overly recruiting expensive kids that it shouldn't be, and things like that. We also added an initial interest seeding of kids. So it used to be all kids just kind of started at zero, and then based on who recruited them, that's where their interest went. And now we've gone in and instead set a default kind of a list of preferred schools or an internal kind of thing. It's not something we're going to show, but the where the kids will have these certain schools that they're drawn to already. So when you go into this screen on week 0, even before the regular season starts, some of these kids will already be interested in your school. They might not be, you know, super high interest, but there is some. So the recommended recruits also goes and looks for those kids that may already be interested because, why wouldn't you go after kids that were, ready to come? And it's much less expensive to recruit a kid who's already wanting to come there. You give them a few visits, you do some scouting of them and that kind of thing, and then, you know, that's that's the best way to do it. Grab the best kids you can at the least possible price. Um, the the way the budgets work, you'll set your staff your salaries for your staff just like you did before. Then you'll start spending your money for recruiting, and at the end of the season, any money that you have left over goes into facilities. And facilities for at least CF24 are going to be more of a conglomeration of generic facilities, right? Facilities can be construed as physical buildings and that kind of thing. It could be weight rooms, it could be training staff, it could be cheerleaders, it could be team buses, whatever. It's just this kind of overall facility rating for your school. And it does affect kids, they'll look at the facilities and decide if it's a good fit for them. It's part of their personalities to kind of be more interested in schools that have really good facilities. So you'll see bumps and bonuses and things like that for those schools that are able to save a little bit of money at the end of the season to upgrade their facilities. It does it automatically. If you save a bunch of money, your facilities go up. If you don't save enough money, your facilities go down. Just kind of a automatic thing in there. And in the future, we'll look at maybe expanding on facilities and expanding on this budgets and finance options and things like that. But this is kind of our way of moving more in that direction, and we're pretty excited about it.
Yeah, I think that's a good goal, down the line. But I think again, adding in the facilities and stuff like that, just another step towards the realism and kind of showing some of the different teams and what their budgets are, what their facility ratings are, how they're running out of money, and stuff like that, so that they can see that it's not all. My default team was Michigan there, of course, so that if you're playing at a lesser school, you're not going to have, as you said, just tons of money to throw around all over the place. All right, let's.
Yeah, I'm responding to things on the chat too as well. So I'm having fun keeping track of it all.
I'm going to pull over to the that screen there. Go over to the depth screen, because I know this is an area that got a lot of attention too. Talking about updating depth charts packages so that you have more flexibility in how you're doing things here.
This was the other big thing that it took me a little while to work on. We got a lot of feedback from folks that didn't particularly like the fact that they were limited on the number of packages they could create for their depth charts, because we had the concept of being able to go 4 packages and then you had 1 backup package, and we've since updated that. Now they're basically unlimited packages that you can create, and then once you do that, you're able to assign the packages to a particular formation. And we've gotten rid of the concept of the percentages, because it was confusing. You never really knew which one it was going to pick, whether it was going to pick, if you had 50-50 or 33-33-33, it was never obvious which one it was going to pick. It was kind of a dice roll. So we cleaned that up a little bit. So now you can basically create a depth chart. You create as many packages as you want, and then a package per formation if you'd like, because I know a lot of people wanted to be able to run real specific packages for real specific formations. Like if they're running a 2 tight end set, they wanted to be able to put specific tight ends for that. If they were running, I formations, right? They just wanted more flexibility in how they set that kind of thing up. So we heard that feedback and we went ahead and implemented it. So now the screens work very similar, but now you have unlimited numbers of packages to deal with.
I think for the people who really, really love digging into football, that's going to be huge, because now there's no constraints. They can sit there and make a package for anything they can come up with, and assign it to all the different formations and stuff like that. So I think for the people who are true strategy and football aficionados, I think they're really going to love that.
I think so. I think by having multiple packages, what it allow, well, it puts more emphasis back on the depth chart. Before, a lot of people would take their packages and they'd use that as the depth chart, as the way of rotating between players and that kind of thing. And now it's back to being part of the depth chart. If you have, your number 1 running back and a number 2 running back, well, now they'll, it makes a difference how many packages you put them into and what order you put them into. So it's no longer just randomly picking across formations to try and get that working. So I think it makes it a little more realistic. We brought back in the running back by committee. So if you check that box under the settings, it will make your it'll make the first, second, and even third string running back split a little bit more, so you get a little bit of an even distribution there instead of focusing primarily on one. Hopefully that helps both in the realism part and the game planning part, and that kind of thing. I'm looking forward to getting feedback on that and seeing, if it. We hope that it's much better received than last year's version. So hopefully everybody agrees and we can get more feedback on more improvements we can make to it.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't want to overwhelm anybody who's not that doesn't want to go that deep in the weeds with the game planning and the custom playbooks, because you don't have to do that. You could still use the default, or make very minor tweaks and still find success in the game. But this is really geared towards the people who want to go beyond that, and I think that it really again, kind of goes with our strategy of making the game playable for everybody, accessible for everybody. And I think it's a great thing that we've got these really in-depth, even the ability we've talked about before to create your own playbooks or your own custom plays. I really love how many options there are for everybody here.
We always try and keep these things as easy to use and as difficult as you want to make it. If you want to go deep into the weeds, then you can. If you don't, then a lot of the AI will take over. The coaches will have their own preferences. The playbooks will be generated that match, coach uh, personalities and that kind of thing. So yeah, you're more than welcome to just run it on auto, and there's a lot of really good results that still can come out of it.
It's actually one of my favorite things when we work on these games is making something that's really detailed that someone will enjoy, but then also afterwards the challenge of writing like a good CPU decision logic for it, so you can actually use the like the auto recruit or like auto set depth charts and stuff like that. That's really, really what I enjoy. Just to answer, I rule all 15. You're asking about attitudes. I assume that you mean like players becoming friends and having opinions of things. That is some of the stuff that I'll be working on throughout First Access, like just fleshing out more of like personal interactions, making the universe seem more alive. That's really also a part that I enjoy tinkering with, and just to make them feel more like real people that have like preferences and friendships and stuff like that. If that's what you mean by attitudes.
Yeah, I think there are a couple things. There was somebody in the forum or someone online somewhere that was asking about increasing the attributes and going to a more Madden type system where we end up with
Ah,
40 or 50 or 60 attributes, and we're
okay.
not gonna do that. The ones that we have work well with our engine. I think they're manageable. It makes it, there's a little bit of fogginess and how all of that stuff works and how the attributes combine together, and we kind of like the setup that we have. I
Right.
understand the request, but yeah, that's not something that we're going to do. But
Yeah, he
anytime we
just
can
go.
add, yeah,
He just
anytime we can
corrected it
add,
to attributes now, not
yeah,
attitudes.
yeah, that's fine. The attitudes are always fine. We do, every version of these games, we go a little bit deeper on these things. So
Yeah,
coaches matter a little bit more this season. Player attitudes matter a little bit more this season, right? There's more.
yeah,
There may be a little bit more news articles in here. You'll get responses on your recruiting log on how successful your recruiting pitches were.
yeah,
Um, there's coach logs for how well they've done over the year, right? We try and touch a lot of these things and go just a little bit deeper, a little bit more immersive. Um, we try and do as much of that as we can from version to version without breaking things, right? If we go too far one way or the other, we could lose the momentum that we have, or we could, we can break online leagues and things like that. So that's never intentional. But yeah, every chance we get to make these attributes mean a little bit more, and to get a little bit more feedback, a little more transparency on what's going on behind the scenes, then we're definitely going to
yeah,
take advantage of it.
yeah. Killer 35 Durand. It's me. I broke the coaching pace. That should have been like a scrolling on the log there, because when you sim so many seasons, the log gets too long. That's my bad.
Yeah, it's a demo. There's always
Yeah,
always different things like that going on. That's still
yeah.
under active development. So there's still going to be things that we're tweaking as we go.
I take full responsibility for the lack of a scroll there.
Yeah, and that happens because all three of us are in there, doing different things. I take no credit for anything on the football side. I'm just the UI guy in this, but I go in there and change UI things. Sometimes I accidentally break things for Brooks and Asger. Sometimes it goes the other way and they break things that I didn't see before. So that's kind of why we go through this and do the first access, and kind of take a really good look at everything and get everybody's feedback and kind of clean those things up really easily. So that's just a simple fix there.
Yeah, it's just
Coup-
because you simped so far ahead, and
yeah, I know.
I didn't do that in my test, so the logging of the coach progression just got very long there.
I wanted to make sure Michigan was still good into the future, so we didn't have to correct anything like that. So I had to take a
Right,
long
yeah.
look.
Yeah, all your code that you go in and change that, I have to go in and change it back and make Ohio State better,
Uh,
just to get you.
well, at least I got real life so far the last couple of years to look forward to on that.
Yeah,
Hopefully it
speaking of
keeps
that,
up.
one of the things that we've been doing in the background part of our we have a couple of people who are helping us test. We're testing the prestige and changes over time and things like that because we have gone in and updated the team list to match the conference changes to match what the NCAA is doing. So you'll see, we've changed around some of the conferences. We've moved some teams around. We've updated that to be as up to date as I'm aware. And if there needs to be corrections, by all means let me know. But it's fun to see as we change some of the prestiges around over the last year or two as teams have moved up and down and that kind of thing. We've adjusted some of them, so it's fun for us to sim forward and see what happens with some of these schools. You see some of these schools, rise to the top of their conferences and start, just dominating with really high prestiges, or some of the good old standbys, do they kind of fall back a little bit because of just it's just hard to stay up at the top for any length of time. So we've been having fun, even behind the scenes, simming through that and checking to see, how realistic is it, and how believable is it, and those kinds of things.
Yep, there's a lot that I think people will kind of uncover as we go through. One other thing I guess I'll throw out to mention is the addition of spring games. I can't show it on the screen here, but I know that's a new thing in the game this year. What exactly will happen with the spring games?
So spring games are interesting because typically the spring games are for the kids who are still on campus, minus kids who have moved on and graduate or are planning to graduate or transfer or whatever. The spring games are limited rosters for the kids who are moving up. And the way that we decided to handle it, at least in this version, is I just match the offense against the defense and sim a game, basically. So you won't have any of your incoming kids on campus yet because that doesn't resolve until after spring training, after signing day, and that kind of thing. Whereas the spring games happen before all of that happens. But at least you'll be able to see what happens when the kids get a little bit older, and then it's just like I said, it's an immersion thing. It's fun to see how well some of your kids who may not have played the previous season would do. Because all of the seniors have since moved on. So you'll see a spring game section where the offense plays the defense. The offense always wins because it's just the way the game keeps track of scores and that kind of thing. But it's pretty interesting to do. Somebody did ask about the spring games being, like a red versus white or a first string versus second string and that kind of thing. We didn't do that. That was a little bit more complicated than what I wanted to do. So we just did offense against defense, and like I said, it sims it out and gives you a little bit of a fun little week to check things out and see how well your new guys may be doing.
Yeah, I think that's good. It's kind of like you get just an idea of maybe who would be better this year than they were last year or stuff like that. So I think that's a cool idea. I know there's questions in here about coach carousel. That's absolutely here. Right? The coaches get poached from other teams and stuff like that in the off season, correct?
Correct. That's still there. We've tweaked it a little bit based on feedback, based on movement that people are seeing in our testing, and obviously as we go through first access, we'll definitely take more feedback there. If folks are asking about being able to start a career kind of in a RPG type mode where you start as a trainer and move your way up, or you start as a coordinator and move your way up, those kinds of things aren't in the game at the moment. They may make it into a future version if we decide to focus on those kinds of things, but unfortunately, we felt like there were other things that we wanted to tackle this time around, so those will not be there for CF24. And we keep everything on the list and we evaluate everything on a yearly basis. But yeah, that's not something that's going to be there just yet.
And I think that for the most part, the majority of people are going to choose to play as a head coach, anyways. And in the challenge mode, you do get offers at the end of the season if you want to move to another team or if you get fired. So that is in there too. So it's the college basketball game does have the ability to play as an assistant. There's not a whole lot to do in those modes. You kind of just do one task as opposed to manage everything. So it is there, but the vast majority of people are choosing to play as a head coach. And I think, working their way up from a lower school to a higher school, I mean, that's absolutely possible here in the game, right, Brooks?
Yeah, every off season, your contract gets evaluated, and yeah, there are an opportunity for you to jump to similar schools of your prestige or higher schools, take more salary, take less salary, whatever you decide to do. There's a checkbox for turning that off if you just don't ever want to get fired. Um, so there's that kind of movement, and then obviously all around you with the coaching carousel, you'll see teams poaching other teams' coordinators and teams elevating, coordinators to head coaches and that kind of thing. So we like the movement aspect of it, but being able to play as a coordinator, I did look at it. I haven't wrapped my head around what kinds of things we would want to enable or disable for that particular mode. Part of me feels like I turned some of that stuff off, it wouldn't be as much fun to play as a coordinator because, well, what could you do?
Right.
Like you already have a head coach, right? And if the head coach tells everybody what to do, then basically you'd be sitting a whole season just clicking the sim week button. So we need to put more thought into something that's playable, enjoyable, realistic, and makes sense, and that kind of thing. And like I said, it wasn't on it just didn't make the top of our list for this time around. But it'll be there until either we put it in or shut it down for good. But I'm not giving up on it yet. It's just not going to be there this time.
Yeah, and here's a look at the staff signings page from this league, so you can see in the off season how coaches left, previous teams to take jobs at other schools and stuff like that. So you can see there's a good amount of coach movement, already built into the game, and I think that's pretty realistic. Okay, that is the bulk of things I wanted to go through in this preview tonight. Brooks or Ansgar, is there anything else you guys wanted to add before we get into first access details?
I'm good, I think.
I'm good too.
Okay, so the news everybody's waiting for: when does first access begin? First access will begin this Friday. So it's 2 days away, exclusively at WolverineStudios.com. If you know the drill, you can go there on Friday, pre-order, get your copy, you get your license key emailed to you right away, you get a little discount, and you can start playing. The final release will be a couple weeks after that, so we'll have a couple weeks where we're taking feedback from everybody and making some tweaks and changes and things like that. So get your credit cards ready. Friday at WolverineStudios.com. The pre-order will begin probably Friday afternoon or something like that. We'll have details up on the website. We'll put the stream will be replayed on our Twitch channel. We'll get it on our YouTube channel. There'll be a lot of information coming out in the next couple weeks about the game, and of course our other games as well coming. It's busy season for us as we get into our new season of launches, starting with College Football 2024. So I hope you guys are excited from this stream. I hope you can't wait to get into the game and start playing and checking out the new features, the new UI, everything. A lot of new stuff here. We went over the big stuff tonight, but there's a lot more that you will find and come across. So thank you to Brooks, thank you to Ansgar, thank you to all of you guys for coming out to the stream. Thank you for following our channel. Thank you to the people who sub to our channel. Make sure you're following us on all our socials. Twitter, X, whatever it's called now, Facebook, Instagram, our YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe there so Uh, you can be aware of all the things we've got. Videos on our YouTube channel, by the way. We had a recruiting video from last year. We'll have to do a new one with a new system, but we are trying to put content out on the channels as a way to help, especially new gamers to the game. You see, as I talked about, the help options on the screens that we are trying to add in rollovers so that you have more information here. So if there's other things that, as a new player, you might not understand, or you want some better description on, let us know. We can add more help into the game. Doing everything we can to make the game as user-friendly as possible. And Jason says in the chat he's excited to play this on his stream soon. If you are streaming, if you have a YouTube channel or something, please tag us on Twitter so that we can help promote your stuff and send people to watch your videos and watch your streams and stuff like that. We absolutely want to do that for our community. The people with the mods, those on the forum, so I'm sure people will be getting into that very quickly, and everything will be ready to go for Friday. So Friday, we will see you at WolverineStudios.com for the start of First Access. Make sure you come and get your discount and get playing on the game. Thank you, everybody, for coming out tonight, and we will see you in just a couple days to get this started for our 2024 season. Thanks, everybody, and have a great